What's up guys, Intelitech Studios here, and today we're going to be doing a super quick tutorial on how to change the belt on your Hoover Elite Rewind vacuum. Now this is the oldest generation of the Hoover Elite Rewind, with the model number being... Let me find it real quick. So, the model number on this machine is the U5507900. So if you have one of these earlier Hoover Elite Rewinds, basically if yours has this bin design and the HEPA filter on one side and the cord rewind on the other side, so it looks like it's wearing earmuffs, this is the version that I am demonstrating in this video, although the process is identical for every version of the Elite Rewind, including the newest one that's on the market that's in a blue color scheme. So we're going to be replacing the belt. It's very simple. First thing we're going to do is we're going to recline the pedal right here and flip the machine over so we can see the brush. Now will also be a good time to clean up the brush roll. Now we can see on my unit, I do need to replace the height adjustment wheels as the actual mechanism is taped on, so it's a little bit funky. On yours it shouldn't look like that. But regardless of what version of the Elite Rewind you have, there should be several screws. In this case there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, looks like that's it. So 4 screws to take out on this particular model. They're just basic Phillips head screws, so we're going to do that. And as far as the belt type that we'll need, it depends on the version that you have. But for this version of the Elite Rewind, again with this basic design, the belts for this technically aren't available anymore, but there are several belts you can use instead. You can use either the Hoover Style 160 or 033 belt, or you can use a Bissell Style 7910 belt. Even though this says Bissell, and even though this is a Hoover, it will work just fine. It's a rubber belt. There's not much that really goes into it. It's just a matter of if it actually fits and gets proper torque on the brush roll. Now, to figure out whether or not you would need to replace the belt in the first place, one of two things. If the performance of your vacuum is not as good and you feel like the brush roll is sometimes slowing down or stalling, or in this case, the brush roll is completely loose. So in our case, the belt has actually snapped. And if you sucked up something, let's say you got something stuck in the brush, like a carpet fiber or a sock in my case, and you smell a burning smell right after the brush stops spinning, that's actually not the motor of your vacuum, it's just the rubber belt burning. It is a rubber belt. There is no safety protection on this machine. This is a cheaper, more budget option that has been discontinued for quite a while now, so a lot of vacuums of this style have rubber belts that do need replaced frequently. And in this case, if it breaks and burns through, then it's definitely not going to be usable. As you can see, the brush roll is not connected at all anymore, and it just spins freely. If your brush roll does not spin freely and there's nothing jammed in it, then once we remove the brush, you're going to check it and make sure it spins freely, and if it doesn't, then you're likely going to need to replace your brush roller or replace the bearings in it. If you're not sure which to do, take it to your local vacuum shop and they'll help you out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove all these screws. Now ideally you would get something like a magnetic screw tray, but I don't have mine with me, so for now I'm just going to set these aside. These are black screws, so be careful if you have a dark colored carpet. You could misplace these. You don't want to misplace a screw. Now you can use a drill, or you can use a standard number 2 Phillips head screwdriver. Depends on what bit you use, of course. Just make sure not to use an impact driver or anything that can cause damage to the machine. There we go. Now that all 4 screws have been removed, we can just grab the base plate and pull it right up. There's a little tab right underneath here. Oh, it looks like I forgot a screw. So there is another screw right here. Good thing I noticed that. Yes, so that means that there are 5 screws. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's my bad. Black on black can be hard to see. We want to make sure we have all of our screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have all of our screws. They came out just fine. They didn't strip or nothing, so we're good. And as we can see, our belt is broken, and we can actually see there is a good amount of rubber on the motor spindle, which is not good. So we're going to take our old belt, which in this case is broken, and we're just going to discard this. We can see this looks horrible. You can tell this actually did burn through. It's not always the case that your belt will be broken, but if you take your new belt and the new belt fits inside your old belt, then you can tell that your old belt is stretched out and will need to be changed. In my case, that's painfully obvious because the belt is actually snapped. So in my example, I'm using a Bissell Style 7 belt, but again, the Hoover 160 and 033 belts work as well. And if I find a link to the actual belts for this machine, I'll link those in the description as well. I'll link all 3 types of belts in the description. And if I can find replacement brush rollers that fit this machine, I'll put those in the description as well. So you want to take the old belt, and you just want to discard it. No use for that. And we're going to take the brush roll out and make sure that the brush roll spins freely. I'm actually just going to wipe this on the carpet. So we're just going to hold both sides in my hand and spin it. You can see spins freely, no issues. So we can see there's a good amount of hair on this brush, so we're just going to simply use our fingers and pull the hair right off of this brush. Shouldn't be too complicated. And I'm just going to set all the hair to the side. So we're just going to pull this off with our fingers. You can also use a blade or a small pocket knife or something like that to actually cut the hair off if it's tightly wrapped around. But in my case, I haven't been using this vacuum too long, so the hair isn't wrapped around very tightly, so I can just pull it all off by hand. You want to make sure to pull all the hair off the brush roll because this can potentially bind up on the brush and make it not spin as fast and not clean as well. Plus also, this is obviously dirty hair that you want to throw away, and it being stuck on your brush means that you're then just rubbing this dirty hair back into your carpet. So you definitely don't want that because that can also affect the cleaning ability of your machine. So just going to go ahead and grab all this. I'm not going to edit this part out since I've already got most of the hair off anyway, so this is a very good demonstration. Obviously, if you have a lot more hair on your brush, this process may take longer as far as clearing all the hair off the brush. But in my case, one little bit right there, and all the hair is off the brush. You can see my brush spins freely. You can also just put it up on its side like this, and you can see it spins just fine. If this does not spin freely, then yeah, you're going to want to replace this or take it to your local vacuum shop and see if they can rebuild it with new bearings. I don't believe this brush roller is easily disassemblable, but I could be wrong about that. Again, take it to your local vacuum shop if you're not sure, and they'll take care of it for you. Okay, so now we've got all the hair off of this. Now, here's a problem. This machine, since the belt burned on it, there is a good amount of rubber that is actually kind of settled on the motor spindle. And you can see there's a lot of black dust there too. Now, that's not really that great because since there is all this material on this motor shaft, I don't know if you can see that, but you can see this little black material right here. Trying to see if I can see this on camera. Then whenever you try to install a new belt, it will likely just burn because that will be causing resistance to the new belt and is going to cause problems. Now, if you have this issue, I recommend taking it to your local vacuum store because chances are it's going to be kind of hard to get this stuff off without actually doing it, without causing potentially more problems. Now, in my case, I'm going to remove this myself because I have a special tool that I can use to actually get this rubber off. It's called a seating stone. It's a small white piece of stone that I can use to rub all this off, and I'm going to do that while the machine is on. So I'm going to go grab that real quick and demonstrate how that works in case that's something you're interested in doing. But that'd be more so if you're wanting to do repairs on these vacuums more often, and if you're okay with being around this spindle while it's moving, which could potentially cause injury, so you want to be careful with that. Okay, so bad news. I can't find my seating stone. Good news. You actually don't need it to do this if you're just doing this on one machine, because one thing you can do is you can just get a flat tip screwdriver that's of a relative thickness, and you can actually just scrape all of the rubber right off the motor spindle. Now, you can't just do this. You kind of have to do one portion of it and kind of scrape it along the motor spindle and then move it a little bit and then do it along that. It'll take a bit, but you can kind of just scrape all of the rubber off throughout the entire motor spindle. And you can either do it by wiping the blade along it or just the back of the screwdriver, because we don't want to mar up the motor spindle. We don't want to cause any cuts to it. But what we want to do is scrape all the rubber off so that the motor spindle is nice and smooth. Because once it gets smooth, then that's when you know that the belt will ride on it properly. Because if it's uneven, if there is anything in terms of rubber or debris or anything on this motor spindle, hair, anything like that, then when you put the belt over it, it's just going to cause tension and uneven pressure on the new belt, and it's just going to cause it to burn through. So the point is that we want to make sure that this spindle is nice and shiny. So once we've gotten to that point, we're going to want to take a piece of paper towel or shop towel or something and spray it with some solution. I'm going to use Zep Fast Degreaser. And I'm just going to go get a towel real quick, and I'm going to spray it on there. I'm going to wipe off this motor spindle and clean this up so that way the new belt goes on properly. You probably don't have to do that, but as long as this is clean, so that way you don't get anything on your belt or worse on your carpet, then you're in good shape. Now, if you have another vacuum, then this next part will come in very handy, because there is a little bit of debris and stuff that's kind of in the general area of this machine. So the best way to get that out is, well, with another vacuum. Now, you can't really use the Hoover because you're in the process of cleaning it and you don't want that motor spindle to spin up and potentially get you. So in my case, I'm going to grab another vacuum, and we're going to make sure it's far enough away so that we don't accidentally suck up those screws. And I'm just going to clean up this general area and get all the dust and stuff out of here, so that way we don't have any issues putting it back together. Okay, now that that's out of the way, we're going to grab, in my case, I'm going to be using shop towels, and I'm just going to pull one of these off. We're just going to take some of this Zep. Now be careful, if you do decide to use Zep, you can also use window cleaner, Windex, anything like that. Comet is another thing that I like to use. If you use Zep, be very careful. This is a very powerful cleaner, and it can potentially burn your hands. So I recommend wearing gloves, or just skipping this part entirely, because again, as long as there's nothing that you can feel on the motor spindle, it's not a big deal. In my case, I'm going above and beyond because I don't plan on opening this up again. And in my case, I'm just going to let this sit for about a minute, and I'm just going to let this whole thing sit for about 1 minute, and we're going to wipe this all down. Alright, so now we've let this sit for a minute. So I'm just going to wipe this off. And again, in my case, these wheels are going to be a little bit squirrely. Shouldn't be on your unit. But I'm just cleaning all this up just for the sake of it. Especially this motor spindle, since we'll be installing a new belt on it. I want to get this as clean as possible, since I do plan on selling this machine after the review. So I want it to look nice. This probably could use a new set of wheels, but that'll be up to the customer, as I will not be able to find anything like that for it. Okay, so now that we've got all of that taken care of, let's just make sure this is still filming, and it is. We're going to take our new belt, which again in my case is a Bissell Style 7. We're just going to loop this around the motor spindle. There we go. See, it's pulling through just fine. We're going to take our brush roll, fit it through, center it right here, a piece of hair. We're going to stretch this down. Now, in this case, this little edge of the brush roll is round. We're going to fit it into the housing right there. We're going to make sure to keep it straight so the belt doesn't get clamped on anything. You can see that's fit in there just fine. This other side is notched, so we're just going to, there we go, fit that notch in there. Very similar to a Bissell brush roller. And we can see, there we go. spinning just fine. Nice and tight. Brush roll is spinning just fine. That's exactly what we want. There's no play in the brush roller. Everything sits in there flush. And that's it. So now we're going to take our bottom plate. We're just going to line this up. There's a little tab right here. I'm going to make sure to get that in place. Again, since my wheels are a little bit funky, this will be a little bit more tricky for me than it would be for you. Actually, I'm just going to push these up out of the way, and then that will resolve that problem. There we go. Just click that right in there. Go. Push that back in there. It's being a little bit squirrely. It's not quite wanting to sit in there flush for whatever reason. But I'm going to hold this on, make sure the brush still spins, and it does. There we go. Everything's lined up. So now in my case, I'm using a drill, but you don't have to. You can use a standard screwdriver. We're going to take our 5 screws. We're going to start with these top corners and then the edges. So this screw right there, this screw right there, this screw right here, this screw right here, and finally this screw right here. We want to put them in by hand a little bit before we start, especially in my case since I'm using a drill. If you're using a standard Phillips head screwdriver, you want to make sure all these are lined up properly. You don't want to strip any of these screw holes. And there we go. You can see they're all in. Now you want to have this on a very low torque setting. I have it on the lowest possible, just in case. Okay. That one. Okay. That's in. It's not wanting to go on for whatever reason. Oh no. That's not good. I don't know why, but my base plate just cracked. Yeah, that's not good. You gotta be really careful. Be really careful with this stuff. My God. Maybe putting all the screws in first was a bad idea. Drive that out. I do not know why that happened. That's not good. Okay. Bit of technical difficulties here. I'm unsure as to why I've had so many issues getting this base plate on. This is very peculiar. But this is reality. I'm not doing a bunch of crazy editing to make you think that this is to misrepresent this process. Sometimes mistakes like this do happen. I generally recommend trying to avoid using a drill if at all possible, just in case something like this does happen. And it appears I should have followed my own advice. There we go. Now this all sat in properly. There we go. A little bit of technical difficulties there, but that does sometimes happen. We're going to be very careful with this now. Okay. Get this one in very carefully. There we go. That's in. Okay, that one's in. Now we're going to get this corner over here. There we go. And now this corner. There we go. And then if I can figure out where the final screw is. Oh, here it is. We're going to get this one in the middle. There we go. So now this is all back together, and we have successfully changed a belt on our Hoover Elite Rewind vacuum cleaner. So again, in my case, I used a Bissell style 7, 9, 10 belts, and I got the machine all nice and cleaned up. So that way, I shouldn't have to do any more work before I do the review on it, and hopefully sell it to somebody interested. But yeah, so that is the machine. See, brush roll is spinning just fine, and we're going to go ahead and pull the cord out and do a small little test on the little test run to make sure everything is spinning the way it should. Okay, we're going to plug this in real quick. Unplug my other vacuum that I was using. Plug this in. Okay, and we're going to give this a quick little test run. Go. Works perfectly. And we changed out this horrible broken belt for a nice shiny new one. So, if you found this tutorial helpful, be sure to like this video. And if you didn't, then be sure to leave a comment as to why. I assume probably the times that I said I was going to do something, it didn't because I couldn't find the part. Sorry about that, but sometimes that happens. That's just the reality of it. So anyways, this is Intelitech Studio signing out with a belt change tutorial for the Hoover Elite Rewind. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. See you guys in the next video, and I hope you all have a good one. Peace. Review for this machine is coming soon, and after it, I will probably sell it.